Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the fifth episode of the Prosperity Project. My name is Brain Turner, and today I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Miss Sel, and she's a social worker here at LPHS. Welcome.
Thanks, Braden.
So, do you want to just diving straight in? Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into social work?
So I started working in the helping field in 1997. The first thing I did was work with victims of domestic violence, and I always just wanted to help people.
Yeah.
It was always one of my passions, and I've always been really interested in human behavior. And so social work was a real natural thing for me to pick up. But that kind of started my passion for helping. And then as the years kind of went on, I just went back to school, got more degrees and licenses, and now I've been a school social worker for about 7 years.
Yeah. So, how did you actually find yourself at LPHS? What transitioned you to go from domestic violence to this?
Well, there's a whole lot of stuff between that first job and coming here. I'm a military spouse, so we moved here in 2015, and my first year, my kids went to District 38, and so I actually was a paraprofessional one
Okay.
year. They did not have a school social worker position at the time, and I worked for a year doing paraprofessional stuff in classrooms. And then the next year, they added the social worker job, which I interviewed for and was hired. So
Oh,
that's kind of when I started. 2016-17 was my first school year as the school social worker.
okay. So then was it actually that you initially wanted to go into social work from the beginning, or was it that you saw this opportunity and that's what caused you to go into it?
I was already a licensed social
Oh,
worker before I moved here, and but I had never done school social work, so it was a new thing for me, and it was really interesting. I love the idea of being able to work in a school with my kids' school schedule, and a lot of the things that I'd done over the years really just present themselves here, working with families, working with older adults, working with adoption, working in preschool. So a lot of the things I had done up to this point, really, I use every single day. I did a lot of work in suicide prevention
Yep.
at Purdue University and in communities working with volunteers who answered crisis lines. And so a lot of my previous experience really aligns well with what I do here at the school.
Okay. So over the past, I guess it'd be 7 years from 2015, what kind of role have you played at LPHS in all aspects, ranging from us students all the way to your coworkers?
A lot of support for crisis intervention, a lot of help and support in gaining resources and get connected to resources. I know a lot of staff who've come to me with personal stuff, and
Yeah.
I've been able to help them.
Yeah.
But my main role is really supporting students and families, and just kind of figuring out maybe you're not being academically successful. Let's figure out why. Social work has a big basis on systems theory. So we know that different systems in our lives, like environments, school, family, community, affect us in
Okay.
ways. Sometimes it's a good thing and it's a
Yeah.
positive thing, and other times it's negative thing. So when we see that happening with students, we try to connect them, just check in, get more information, figure out what's going on, and then get them back on track.
Okay. So, if you had a student that you checked in with, is it like a reoccurring check-in or is it kind of like a one-time thing?
It depends on the
Okay.
student. Sometimes it's just an introduction. Maybe the counselor or a staff person will bring the student to me or let me know maybe they're struggling. And so it's really a quick check in, kind of see where they're going, what's happening. Sometimes it's just like an isolated event that's disrupted them and they can get back on track
Okay.
pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Sometimes I connect them to other people, and then maybe that helps get them back on track. And then there's other things we call more tier 3 interventions
Okay.
that require regular check-ins with
Okay.
students, usually on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of a more intense intervention rather than just checking in every so often.
Okay. So let's say, I mean, obviously I am a student at LPHS, but let's say for any student at LPHS, how can you be a resource for us, or what can you do to help us if we need to reach out?
I think being able to listen, the best thing that any adult can do really for a teen is to listen and validate feelings and validate the situation. I think sometimes students are afraid to come to adults because maybe they've had a negative experience. But we really can help you all navigate lots of things. We know a lot of things that we can help you work through. So, being able to come to be able to self advocate is huge.
Yeah.
And so being able to say, hey, I need some help, or can you help me with this? That is a big first step.
Okay.
But being able to listen usually can alleviates a lot of the stress and pressure that you guys put on
Exactly.
yourselves. And then we can kind of figure out where to go from there.
Okay. So how would you I guess what I'm trying to say is how would you uh, advocate for students to get past that like kind of wall or shyness or nervousness of reaching out for help, because that's really hard for a lot of students, just asking for help in the first place. How could you it's a big question, I'm sorry, but how have you seen this in the past with students that just didn't want to ask in the first place for
Definitely. And I think that over the last, 7, 8 years of being in this school, I've been able to tell students, like, why am I here, what do I do? And I think being visible in classrooms, being able to be around so that students know who I am, makes it a lot easier.
Mhm.
So because if they have a familiar face, they will feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
A lot of times too, I go into health classes and I talk about mental health and suicide prevention, and so students at freshman year will see me and they'll go, oh, I remember you talked with in our class. And so that's a big thing too. And then I also think that because teachers know who I am and teachers spend the most time with you all,
Yeah.
they're able to say, hey, I noticed that you're struggling or maybe you're going through something. Can we go talk to Mrs. Sell?
Okay.
She's our social worker. And so a lot of times having adults that will bring you to help, or having a friend that will say, hey, let's go down to student services, let's talk to someone.
Yeah.
I think those are the big two things, is just being able to connect with a friend makes
Okay.
it easier, and being able to like connect with a teacher or trusted adult a lot makes it easier to bring it up. It's hard to be vulnerable
Yeah,
and to
exactly.
share that you're
Yeah.
struggling, or to share that you have something going on, but it's very common, and
Yep.
I think that if people know that's a very normal thing, that makes it a little bit easier.
Okay. So, for individual students, what can they do for themselves to both improve their own mental health and the atmosphere at LPHS?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is just being self aware,
Yeah.
like knowing what helps you and what hurts you.
Okay.
If you have people in your life, or you have things that you love to do that really help you relieve stress, really recharge, then do those things. If you know that, if you don't get enough sleep, or if you are struggling, or maybe social media is taking up your time, or maybe social media is bringing you down, then maybe taking that time
Yeah.
away from it, being able to kind of step away. But really, self awareness is huge for anyone, just to understand kind of what helps you and what harms you, and making sure you're doing more of what helps.
Yeah.
And taking those, being able to have boundaries and have those opportunities to say, you know what, like right now I need to like take a break
Yeah.
from this, or take a break from a friend,
Yeah.
or whatever it is that's kind of throwing you off.
So, in our school specifically, what have you seen, either from just your own eyes or kids that have come to you and talked about it, problems that have affected the students at our school, like negatively in their mental health?
I think, one of the biggest things is taking on other people's problems is
Okay.
huge. I think we all want to help each other.
Yeah.
We really want to do that, but sometimes you need an adult to kind of
Yeah.
walk through that with
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
And so a lot of times, keeping secrets, that kind of stuff. Like if someone says, hey, I want to tell you something, but you can't tell anyone,
Yeah.
that's a hard thing to carry
Yeah.
around. And so we really want you to say, hey, like, I'm glad you're wanting to talk about this, let's figure out what to do. But that's the biggest thing. I think the other thing is, there's a lot of drama that's created that really doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
And so I think stopping the drama, stopping rumors when they're happening, not kind of contributing to that kind of stuff is huge. And just being assertive and saying, you know what, I don't really like the situation, or I don't like what's happening, and being able to voice that. I think being able to say what you're thinking and what you're feeling is a positive thing. And then being able to, like, find those people that are in your life that are going to support you in a positive way,
Yeah.
and really just try to help each other. If you see something, say something.
Yeah.
If you hear something that you're worried about, definitely saying something to an adult,
Yeah.
and trying to just connect people to
Okay.
support.
So what you're recommending is that, let's say someone comes to me and expects help, but that's a large task or something that I had to take on, do you recommend that I go to you and let you know, or let some other responsible don't know in general?
I don't, it doesn't matter who. If, I mean, it could be me, it could be maybe one of your favorite
Yeah,
teachers, maybe someone that you really trust.
yeah,
It could be your counselor or an administrator, or
hmm,
it could be even a different staff member.
okay,
Anyone that you feel comfortable with telling, because typically what they'll do is either help you in that moment or they'll say, hey, let's go talk to someone who can help you. And the biggest thing is just being able to like pass it on to an adult
yeah.
so that you don't have to then take on that whole responsibility.
Switching gears just a little bit, I kind of want to ask you, from an academic perspective, ranging from freshman all the way to senior year, how do you recommend students kind of balance both their academic success and their mental health?
I think one of the things that we have to realize is that mental health and academics, are really tied closely together when you're in a school. And if your mental health is suffering, then your academics will suffer too. And so one of the things is just really understanding kind of what your end goal is. It's hard to do that when you're young,
Yeah,
but like if you kind of know what you want to do after high school, working with a counselor to really plan and say, hey, like what do I really need to
yeah,
do for to get to that end goal is big. I also think that advocating for your needs, making sure you're communicating with teachers is a big deal, because what I find is that students will talk to me about a problem or something going on in a class, but they haven't talked to the teacher
yeah,
yet. And so I always encourage them to either reach out to the teacher like via email and
yeah,
say, hey, is there a time when you're available that I can talk to you about
yeah,
something? Because what I find is almost all of our staff will help support you if they know what's going
yeah.
on. But if they don't know what's going on, it's
That's
hard for them
hard.
to kind of be flexible and kind of help you adjust. So I think that obviously starting in the classroom and communicating with teachers is key. Those relationships at the very beginning of the year are super important
For
to
sure.
get to connect, so that if you do have something that comes up that disrupts your ability to be successful, that teacher and you already have a connection and you already have that relationship built. The other thing is there's tons of resources. We have tutoring, our peer
Yeah,
tutoring center. We have National Honor Society tutors.
yeah,
We have lots of teachers who will provide support. So if you're struggling in a class because you don't understand the content, then there's a lot of support to get for
okay,
that. And I wouldn't wait until you're too far behind.
okay, yeah,
Um, yeah, so just I think balancing that and then making sure you're also taking time for fun things,
yeah.
and not just putting so much pressure on yourself to do things that require your time and energy, that you need to really balance the fun stuff too.
Yeah. Just from my personal experience, I've had a very trivial task just trying to balance my academic success along with a bunch of extracurriculars, free time, and maintaining good mental health. So, how would you recommend I balance all of these at a healthy rate?
Well, I think that whatever extracurricular activities you do, they really need to be bring you joy
Yeah,
or bring you, something positive. If the extracurricular activity is just putting more stress on you and it's maybe putting more pressure on you and it's not a positive thing, then maybe you need to rethink doing that. We have lots of different athletes and clubs and activities that we do, but sometimes people do that for the wrong
yeah,
reasons. So, obviously physical activity is important. So if you can do a sport and get some stress
yeah,
relief in that sport, then that's great. If a club is a lot of fun and you like participating and it's not adding more stress, then that's good too. But I think you have to really decide: is this bringing me more stress,
yeah.
or is it helping me relieve
Okay.
stress? And I think balancing that too is a good idea. I think sometimes we do a lot of things because we think we need to for college
Yeah,
applications or for things like
for
that.
sure.
So knowing kind of what you're wanting to do after school, if it's be an athlete in college, if it's getting into a super selective school, then those are the things that you'll need to plan for.
Yeah,
But also understanding that mental health will affect all things. It will affect your
yeah,
performance in academics. It
yep,
will affect your performance on the
yeah.
field. And so being able to like balance it and have all of those good things happening too is very helpful.
So let's say I'm a student and I want to get involved in any extracurriculars, but I don't really know where to start. Where would you recommend I start?
Well, our school webpage has a link on there that has clubs and activities. And so you can always start there. All of those clubs and activities have sponsors,
Yeah.
and you can reach out to the sponsor of the
Okay.
club or activity and then get more information. We have opportunities for sources of strength. We have a lot of different clubs for gaming and other things. So there's a lot of different options, but you can start on the website and just see if there's anything that you're
Okay.
interested in, and then contact the club sponsor.
Okay. Awesome. One more thing I just wanted to go to. I'm sure there's students out here listening to this are like, how can I actually get involved within the district or just the school itself? And what are the best resources you recommend for them to actually get involved?
I think just talking to staff, talking to, Miss O'Connor is a great connection. She can steer students towards, wherever they're looking, if it's leadership or if it's support like mental health stuff. And those are the biggest things. We also have a lot of community agencies where you can get involved. Pikes Peak Suicide Prevention is coming in September for Lunch and Learns,
Yep.
and you can volunteer with their Teen Think Board. You can be on boards in the community. You can get involved with other students from other schools. And so there's a lot of opportunity. It's just really about having the conversation and asking, and also Googling is
Yeah.
is really easy. So if depending on what you're passionate about and what you really want to work towards, you can find just about anything to volunteer with.
And I assume if anyone's wondering, they can come to you as well.
Yes.
For any of these resources.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. One local resource actually that I've brought up from previous episodes I want to bring up to you is So Coalition. I got into it, I think last year, probably around December, almost a year ago, maybe ish. But no, it's been a really good experience so far, and I think just being able to get involved and seeing what other kids my age are also doing in our community to get involved and advocate for students' mental health is amazing. So do you want to bring that up at all?
Yeah, the Social Emotional Wellness Coalition started a couple years ago. We had many community members that participated in the El Paso County youth group that really was based on trying to reduce the amount of suicide in El Paso County. But we knew in Monument we kind of needed our own little thing for our population. So we started that just to connect community, schools, and emergency folks, students together, just to kind of help with our issues we have in our community. And so we always want more volunteers, more people to get involved just in trying to support the wellness of our community, of our students, and really ultimately reduce the amount of suicidal ideation and attempts and deaths by suicide.
So what is kind of the plan for this upcoming year, and what is So Coalition going to do within our community kind of to help like last year?
Well, we're hoping to partner with the Youth Documentary Academy again and present another monumentaries here in this community. They do a lot of really great documentaries based on mental health and a lot of issues related to teens. And so we're hoping to be able to collaborate again and provide another opportunity for that and maybe get more community members to come.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I think that's a great transition into our resources. The first one that we've mentioned that came out recently this year was the Mental Health Crisis Hotline, which is 988. It is an invaluable resource that has it provides a resource for anyone with a variety of needs. This ranges from Black mental health to the youth, to the LGBTQ plus community, to attempt survivors. So if you guys are really seeking help, I think this is a great resource. And we also have a more local resource here in the Tri-Lakes area that provides kind of the same idea. If you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so 988 is just kind of like the 911 for mental health emergencies. And so we have that. This started this year. And then we also have a local resource that's called Beacon, that there are mental health professionals, social workers that go out with El Paso County sheriffs on calls that are mainly mental health related. And instead of having just officers go out, they take the mental health provider, which can then de-escalate, kind of calm situations, figure out what's going on. And that opportunity has been able to connect people to resources and also just reduce the amount of arrests that have been having to be been made. And so being able to take a mental health professional out on a call that really isn't law related and get support connected to them is really important. So we're glad to have that in El Paso County.
Okay.
Another great resource we have in the community is NAMI. It's the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and they have a local office here, and they provide a lot of free resources. So anytime anyone needs to get connected with help or resource or support from people who have also experienced mental health issues, they are a great resource to be able to get connected with.
And then also you can just go on the Lewis Homer High School website where you can find a list of counseling resources. That,
Yep, there's a wide variety of resources for not only students but parents and families on our website, and we try to keep that up to date as possible. We are happy to connect you with anything if you find that you can't find what you're looking for. But the counseling page on the Lewis Palmer website is a really great spot to start.
and then lastly, So Coalition, as we mentioned before, it's just a great way for us students or parents or anyone in the Tri-Lakes community just to get involved in our community as well. And I think with that, that's going to wrap up our podcast for today. So I want to thank Miss Tell so much for coming on the podcast. I also want to thank you, listeners, for taking time out of your day to listen to us. And if you want, feel free to fill out the Google Form survey that we created as a prosperity project, just to give us some feedback on where you want to see our podcast go in the future, or if you would like to be on the podcast yourself. So thank you guys again, and we look forward to the next one. Bye-bye.